Asteroid of fear.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And on today's episode, we have Elijah Hines, and we're going to talk about fitness, nutrition, and mindset in a little bit of a different way. Maybe not in your traditional way, I guess you could say, but it has a lot to do with things that I'm passionate about here on the podcast, which everybody who listens knows I'm passionate about sobriety, especially as it relates to alcohol. And we'll get a little bit into that being a superpower, but how are you doing today, Elijah?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for joining me this morning. I want to start off just by giving the audience a little bit of a background. I have a little bit of your background, of course. I've had the pleasure of watching an interview with you. But for the listeners, let's talk a little bit about where you grew up, what led you into this space, and what was the catalyst hopping on this journey, now getting out there and trying to help others with their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Elijah Hines, Oak City Strong. Oak City is Raleigh, North Carolina. That's where I've been my whole life. I was born here. I'm still here today. Don't really plan on going anywhere either. I absolutely love it here. And as far as my journey goes, I grew up overweight, chubby, kind of on the nerdier side. And as far as the catalyst goes, like pretty much anyone changes, you just get sick of it after enough years of kind of out of sight, out of mind, not really dwelling on it. And then it's just there in front of your face long enough. It's like, why are we doing this? It was the 5th or 7th or 10th, whatever summer it was, that I'm dreading going to the pool, dreading going to the beach, not looking forward to certain social events. And I'm like, let's just do something about this. Like, this is crazy. Why do we do this every year? Why do I feel uncomfortable in these outfits versus these outfits? I have to wear these baggy shirts. Like, this is dumb, right? So eventually lost all the baby fat, got kind of skinny, went through various disciplines as far as exercise goes. I did MMA for a while. I did rock climbing. I did some things that kind of cater themselves to being lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up going the other way, putting some weight back on, building some muscle. And then I got too big again later down the road in that journey. And then I'm kind of at a happy medium these days, and it's come full circle in a lot of ways. Yeah, growing up, not confident, chubby, soft, seeing all my friends and other kids that had other qualities and just seeing the advantages that came with it. Even as a kid, it stood out to me. I might not have analyzed it and broken it down in the way I can today, but it stood out very much so that, oh, they have an advantage. They were so relaxed. They were talking to the pretty girl at the social event or at the pool or whatever. They were just so relaxed. And I'm over here like overthinking everything I'm saying, tripping on my words and shit like that. It's like, there are some benefits to what they have, and there are some disadvantages to what I have. Like, even as a kid, that stood out to me.
What I found interesting as you were going through your journey, some questions I had around that was definitely, I think the younger we are, I'm 47, so a little bit older, but the younger we are, I noticed you had identified with kind of the chubbiness and the aesthetics or looks portion of the equation. But kind of how I'm curious, because as an older person, when I think of exercise and mindset and nutrition, I think about how I feel. How were you feeling at that time? And did how you feel have any impact in terms of, I know, like, if you're a little overweight and you want to play sports with your friends and maybe you tire out a little bit, or perhaps you get picked last, which is kind of an aesthetic skill, but it all kind of relates to, hey, this person's not up to snuff and they're not going to feel good. So were feelings a part of that? Like, feeling the overall feeling of wellness?
No, you're 100% onto something. As far as performance goes, like, this was damn near traumatic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if there was a race, if there was a push-up contest, if we were just roughhousing, like pushing each other, I was the worst with 100% consistency. There was never, I actually won that basketball game, or I never surprised myself and others. I actually finished the foot race. Like, literally every physical endeavor, my entire childhood, I was dead last every single time. I played sports, wasn't very good. I wasn't the go-to on the team. I'm usually on the bench. When I would go up, I would see the other team relax. They're like, okay, we can breathe for a second. I'm like, damn, y'all can hide it a little bit. Like, I could see the energy shift. So from a performance standpoint, 100%. As far as feeling unhealthy or not feeling good, that one's kind of interesting to me because I didn't notice how bad I felt until I started feeling better. Like a lot of these things, like you were talking about, the before and after and being on both sides of the equation, we have to experience the contrast to really know with certainty what each side looks like. Like I used to put down a cookout tray with the shake, with the Cajun fries, with the quesadilla as a side. Like my side was an
Ooh.
entree. Like I would put it down. And I don't remember feeling that bad. If I had it now, I'd feel horrible because I experience on a regular basis, like eating pretty clean and finishing a meal and be like, I'm good to go. I could go for a run, go for a walk, whatever. But back in the day, I don't remember feeling that gross because the body is very adaptable, right? Like
Hmm.
it's the reason really people just need to experience this because if someone has poor eating habits, poor drinking habits and whatever, even drinking, now I would feel horrible if I drank and got hungover.
Oh yeah.
Before, I mean, a hangover never feels good, but you do kind of get used to it in a weird way. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, see, I'm a little off, but like, whatever,
Yeah.
I'm rolling.
It's not as bad because you have other hangovers to compare it to.
That's it. That's it. So it's another contrast. Yeah, yeah. It's all comparison. So yeah, early on, I don't remember feeling that bad from not eating good until I started eating good. And it's like, well, this is way better.
Yeah. And then when you start dropping some of that weight, you look a little better and then you start to feel a little bit better. But, I also noticed when you started, you talked about some different activities. Kind of the reason I want to cross paths with that is that they seem like they were activities that you enjoyed. And I wanted to know, like, did you consciously kind of pursue that as a way to get weight off? And you're like, hey, I want to drop some weight, but I'm going to start off with something I enjoy because traditionally when people think of like weight loss and exercise programs, they automatically think, oh, the gym, the trainer, macros. And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed, but also depending on where you are in your fitness journey and taking that first step, I started with walks, but, sometimes people take up a little hobby that's kind of enjoyable because that enjoyment gives them a little momentum and that momentum kind of keeps them going. And so kind of like you, it seems like maybe you were doing something you enjoyed and then you were like, okay, I want to kind of switch gears and put on a little mass and start hitting the gym. Was that true? Did you consciously choose some activities that seemed enjoyable, or was it a recommendation, or how did you come to that starting point versus maybe starting at the gym in the weight room?
Yeah, as far as my own like intentional journey, it definitely started in the gym. This was like early childhood, like
Hmm.
ages 5 to 16 that I was doing different sports, usually different sports that my dad wanted me to do. And I did enjoy them, even with all the the perpetual failure. Like I played basketball almost every single day from 5 to 15 and
Ooh,
never won. Like it was brutal. I'm like, I mean, eventually I'll get good, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. If there was more intentional like
yeah.
training and hey, let's do these drills instead of just spinning my wheels, like for sure different things could have been done. But it is funny you say that like, so did these sports kind of help out? Ultimately, it was just the diet. When I was a kid, my diet was horrible. I would put away half a gallon to a gallon of soda a day at like a fast food restaurant, or if I'm a sit down restaurant, just
Hmm.
refill, 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 just throwing down on sun-kissed fried food. And I even remember my dad being like, man, you sure are active. I don't know what's going on. Like, I wonder what, hey, is Papa John's coming? As they said they'd be here by 10:10 or whatever. It's like the diet, they say you can't outwork a bad diet. And for the most part, that's pretty true. Like, even spending myself all day physically, if you're eating an absurd amount of food, it's just not going to happen. So that was kind of why that was a dead end. But yeah, as far as my intentional journey, it actually did start in the gym lifting weights.
I also had this hold on, where was it? I keep going back. When I see this word, it makes me think of it. Okay, so when you said that you had kind of you dropped some weight, dropped the baby fat, and then maybe got a little bit leaner and then put weight back on. What caused you to put the weight back on?
Yeah, so it kind of flipped. I got so skinny that now I was like, I feel like, I mean, not even feel like I was a skinny, weak bastard. Like in the weight room, my lifts were not good. I was like 147 at one point, drinking tea and like fasting all day, trying all this other hippie type shit. And it just ended up with me being very lacking in that physical realm, right?
Hmm.
And it kind of was reminding me of that childhood trauma, not to be too dramatic, but of always being physically incapable in sports and events or whatever. And I'm like, damn, I'm still kind of dealing with that. Like, I'm not as chubby and I don't look as bad, but I'm still not physically capable in these areas. Like, this is a problem. And then that coming from a negative, like, active desperation type of energy. Like I have to be strong. I need to be strong.
Hmm.
I was more focused on how weak I was than how much I would enjoy being strong. So then, because it was coming from this negative place, I went so far the other way. I was just engorging myself with food to an extreme state that now I had another problem. Now I was like 220 and 23% body fat. And I was like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like, how did we get here? So it's kind of crazy.
And during that time, so, because I said in the intro about kind of sobriety, and you had mentioned something on your mindset, and I find that interesting too. Because I think they're all related and connected,
100%.
but your mindset of saying, hey, this feeling was coming from a negative place, instead of living in abundance. When you talk about
Yeah.
mindset, you were living on the other side, and therefore, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And you found that out by gorging the other way. During that time, you did kind of balloon back up. Was drinking a factor in that? And so,
100%.
what made you? Where did you put your foot down after you got back up to that 23%? Where'd you put your foot down and say, "Hey, let me evaluate and let me start taking out the stuff." And how did sobriety fall into that? Because I know a lot of people, if you just quit drinking, many times you'll drop some weight because all the habits associated with it. Because I don't know about, unless you're drinking before work, most people get off of work, drink, and then they eat way more calories than they should, and then they typically go right to sleep.
Yeah.
There's a difference of choosing to stop drinking for weight loss versus, let's say, choosing sobriety more for an overall wellness and mindset type of a thing. So where was your stopping point, and what made you decide to take a hard look at that and stop?
Yeah, as far as the catalyst, it was the same as when I was younger. It just got to the point of this is unbearable. And it's really a shame that it takes that. Like I give my own people a hard time. I do rants all the time on my Instagram story about like, why does it need to be the crisis? And even as I'm saying that, I'm like, motherfucker, it always needed to be a crisis for you to make a change. So I'll always plead for people not to wait for that to happen, but it seems like that's just kind of part of the game. You roll up on a point, maybe you've been thinking, yeah, I could look a little better. It's a little unfortunate, whatever. And then one day you look in the mirror and you're like, this is now unacceptable. Like it's beyond that point. And me, I'm a personal trainer, so I was a coach at this time.
Oh,
I would
wow.
be training my clients, point at the mirror, hey, so what we're gonna do? I'm like mirroring with them, we're gonna do, and I'm like, oh my God, you look horrible. And I would be sweating. I'd be getting nervous. I'm like, hey, I got to use the bathroom real quick. And then I'd run to the bathroom. I'm like tucking my shirt in. I'm like, does this make it look better? I'm checking the sides and I'd untuck it. Does this look better? I'm like pulling the shorts up, pulling them down, like trying to find some way to hack it. I'd come out all flustered. They're like, you good? I'm like taking up time of the session they paid for. I'm like, yeah, we're fine. We're just, I'm like voice is shaking and shit. Like, it got out of control. It got out of control. And that was the point where I was like, okay, this has to change. The drinking thing, I mean, yeah, I knew it was going to help with the weight, but that was another thing that for years, my conscience had been calling on me to walk away from it. It's kind of surreal. Actually, when I go through
Mhm.
my Instagram archive over the years, I'll see this like cyclical pattern of heavy drinking, heavy drinking, heavy drinking. And then I'd say like, gonna go 30 days without, wish me luck. And then three days later, it's like my wife and I at a bar with two beers, and I'd be like, I tried, like, haha, like kind of laugh it off.
Yeah.
And like I saw cycles of that for years. I didn't even realize that until I had totally walked away from it. Like this is something we wanted to do for many, many years. But anyways, yeah, taking that out, like you said, the first 20 to 30 pounds were very easy. I was still eating quite a bit. I was having like 2,700 to 3,000 calories
Okay.
when I dropped my first 20 to 30 pounds just from not drinking and adding like daily cardio. So yeah, it's easy mode. Even if someone doesn't have the hang-ups with alcohol that I do,
Hmm.
it's still the first thing I would tell them to drop. Anyone that wants to lose weight, it's the very first thing before I address cardio, macros, how to train. It's the very first thing that I would have someone let go of if they want to lose weight. But yeah, I had a lot of issues with it. I would know that it's going to deter my efforts in the gym. Think about that on the way to the ABC store.
Hmm.
Think about that as they're scanning it. Oh, I mean, this is a nice store. I mean, maybe it's good. Maybe this is a good thing. I'm like trying to make it positive. This guy's real cool. Oh, that was a nice interaction we just had. It's all good. And I'm like, anytime you have that wishy-washy needing to rationalize, you already know you're
Yeah.
off. Like I don't second guess training. I don't second guess treating my wife right. I don't second guess good decisions. So if you're ever like, well, hold on, we can find some kind of light in here, like you already know what's off. So that was me with drinking for a long time. So even outside of the weight stuff, it had been a big issue.
Yeah, that's kind of been my pattern. I had like a little over a 2 year like sobriety spot before my daughter was born, and then one 4th of July. And I was talking about this on an interview I did yesterday with a counselor about alcohol. And, I had heard this episode on a podcast where this tier 1 Delta Force operator, he had talked about he's been sober for like 40 years or something, but he said,
Wow.
for me, he goes, drinking wasn't a problem. The problem was is that drinking was always the answer. No matter what my
Mm,
problem was, alcohol was the answer. And I was like, that's a nice way of putting it. But, you keep going around in circles. And, for me, it wasn't like I felt like I needed it. But my problem was, is then it turned into this kind of daily thing,
mm,
like a daily air pressure valve that you want to let off a little steam. And that's kind of what I notice about myself is, if anything's going to take off the edge and make you feel a little bit better, then it's almost like you want to do it every day and it turns into that daily. And I've come to realize that that's why I can't do it. If you want to focus and you want a daily habit, why don't you focus on exercise, nutrition, journaling, improving self, things to make you and lead you in that direction to your better self. But, it sounds like when you were having that kind of internal dialogue with yourself, that you went all in and said, okay, I've been on both sides. I've lost, I've ballooned. It's time to stop. There was a question on your profile, and I want to kind of discuss, do people have to be all in to get the all in results?
100%. It's built into the question.
Yeah, I thought
It's built into
so.
the question. It's like, do people have to be half in to get half the results? It's like, yeah, it's going to equal that, right?
I
It's
love
always going
that.
to equal that. Like I said, I've been coaching for 5 years now. The clients I have that have the most outstanding result, it is perfectly equated with how hard they work in the gym, the habits they have outside of the gym, how they eat, how they sleep. And I've yet to see an exception. Performance wise, genetics are absolutely exceptions. Like I've had people walk in off the street, never lifted a weight, and immediately trump everyone in the weight room. And they're like, whoa, was that good or something? And it's like, holy shit. Performance is different. As far as the aesthetic, just the character they build along the way, like looking and feeling their absolute best,
Hmm.
100% you have to be all in.
Yeah, that's one of those things of it seems like the all in when like I watched the video or the podcast episode of you on YouTube, I was able to visibly notice what you get when you get all in, the results, what's coming out on the other side versus when you put one toe in and you got one toe out. But
No.
it's kind of that, hey, I want that. I don't ever want to go back. I've been with
Mm.
my wife. We've been together 18 years. In the past year, I've lost quite a bit of weight. And it's not the first time I was a certified personal trainer, the early 2000s. So I have the know-how, but I haven't been this weight since I met my wife 18 years ago.
Oh,
And so
wow.
that kind of tells you the different stages of whatever. But, it's one of these things of kind of that all in mindset to like, I just don't ever want to go back. I don't ever want to get back up to 213. I don't, I just don't want to do it. And
No.
not just for the weight part of it, but for the mental part of it. I found that they're definitely related, like I said, kind of with my use of alcohol and seeing the cycles of when there's more, there's less. I could drop from, 213. I might make it to like 185 and kind of get stuck. And if I was lucky, I'd get to 182. Then I'd be back up to 199 and, fluctuating. And you're
No.
like, oh, that's where I definitely see that all in mentality. That kind of brings me a little bit to mindset. I want to talk about how important, especially for you, is mindset in this process. And I want to attach this question, do you believe in a higher power to it? And if that has anything to do with the first part.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely want to get into that. Before we move on from the all-in thing, I
Hmm.
want to say this. A lot of people, that's when they sign off. They're like, oh, you have to be all in, I'm out. Like, I'm just not there. I can't do it. I won't do it. I refuse to do it. Like, they're so resistant and stubborn and against, like, an extreme or hardcore mentality, they're like, well, I guess I'll go try something else. Why that's so upsetting and disappointing to me is because going all in is perceived as a negative. It's perceived as like, oh, but I'd have to sacrifice so much to get this outstanding result. I don't think I want to go that route. But what they don't know, and they can't know, I didn't know, because again, it's when you're on the other side of it that you see the contrast, right? The more you put in, the more you get out. Results wise, yes, but it's the person that you're creating mentally. Maybe this feeds right into what we're about to talk about with the mindset. I was telling one of my clients the other day, the more days I string together where I have great interactions with my wife and my diet's perfect and my training's perfect and my inner dialogue's perfect. Those days, like they feel like movies. Like it feels like the Matrix or something. It's like, whoa, there's like a very, very special energy here because there's no regret, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no second guessing, there's no, yeah, I could have ate this instead, damn it. Like if you're just checking off every box, it feels amazing. It's not a negative. It's like I'll say all in. And what I'm really saying is, hey, from good to great. And they hear it as from good to impossible. So it's actually bad. Like they're interpreting the most positive result as a negative thing. That's crazy to me.
Well,
But if they
and
could if they could snap their fingers and have that outstanding result, they're like, well, yeah, of course I would do that. But it's all that shit you're asking me to do that I refuse to do. And that's why I can't get like the most stupendous result. And it's like, do you know how happy you would be if you had that stupendous result? And the person you would have created along the way, like the more days you can string together of having the right inner dialogue, making the right decisions, being able to take a deep breath as you're standing in front of the pantry and go, why am I even
mhm.
standing in front of this? Like, I'm not even hungry. And it's so easy in that moment to be like, yeah, but also fuck it and just grab a bite of something. If you can watch yourself close that door and walk away, take a deep breath, and you're like, wow, I'm like literally waking up from the subconscious autopilot dream. Like, I am gaining more willpower, more self control in real time. So, bit of a rant there, but I get really excited about that topic because I've even talked to like competitors in bodybuilding, and they get it because they have to go that extreme, and they're like, yeah, I'll never be the same. I will never be the same. Someone preparing for like a physique competition, I mean, it goes way farther than anything I've ever done. Like they're literally like weighing out every morsel, and
Yeah.
their mind is trying to rationalize, like, oh, but you can like something, you can have this snack, right? And they're like sweating, they're shaking like that is the next level of shit. I don't know nothing about that. Like I don't do those kinds of competitions, so I don't know anything about that. But all that to say, even those cats, they're like, dude, life will never be the same. The self-control I've displayed to myself enough times, I have it for life now. So,
Well,
anyways,
there was an interesting point was as you were speaking, I had this thought of, and it'll kind of go into mindset and belief. But, I think the reason people don't go all in, that hesitation is from lack of self-belief because they don't
mm,
believe they can achieve that result. Because I thought about, like, let's say for me, I thought about, like, well, in anything, what would cause hesitancy? Well, either you don't trust a person or a product, or that hesitation is because you don't believe you can achieve those results within that system or whatever it is you're going for. And so I definitely think that not believing in oneself can cause that hesitation not to go all in.
100%.
But, and that's mindset. But there's this overlap of going, like for me, yes, I've gone from 213 to 165. So it's like, I know I can do it. That builds belief and it makes it easier to go all in or want to go all in. And it's almost like if you could get a little bit of mindset prior
Yeah,
to, you
yeah,
could make that decision and actually speed up your results. Because I've found that the thing that's helped me, because I don't know that I necessarily went all in, but was kind of consistency, stringing together small wins, whether it been like start walking, changing a little bit of nutrition. And that's also a method that people can use is, no matter what, start slowly. You can be all in and still start slow. Because I think the all in is a mindset, but the mindset propels the action. If that action is consistency, then I think you'll start to see the results. Let's
yeah.
talk a
It's
little
just
bit about mindset and if you believe in a higher power and attach that to it, and how important that mindset is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit of a paradox, that
Mm-hmm.
belief to taking action relationship, because they feed into each other. Like the more you see yourself taking the right actions, the more you believe you can do it, the more you see yourself taking the right actions. So ultimately, it's like just touch both of those up very often. Like it doesn't have to be one or the other, all action with no belief, or massive
Mm-hmm.
belief and I'll take action when I'm ready. Like just touch them both up. And eventually you got this nice vortex going and they're both feeding into each other. So wanted to add that. But yeah, mindset, it's everything. It all starts in the mind. Literally everything starts in the mind. And it's funny to me that even that term mindset, like a lot of people just hear that and already roll their eyes.
Yeah.
They picture a motivational speaker on stage
Mm-hmm.
like Tony Robbins or David Goggins, who's going to carry the boats. And they're like, oh, motivational, rah, rah. You get like this big emotional spike and then nothing really changes. Like it's great, like mindset, what you set your mind to. Like that having negative connotations is crazy to me. But so many people, they immediately like, oh, you're one of those mindset cats. It's like, is that not important to be deliberate with what we think? To
You
be
can do anything
deliberate
you set
with,
your mind to, is a saying
right.
that we're taught as kids.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like a lot of the stuff is actually way more straightforward and simple
Mm-hmm.
as kids, and then we just kind of overcomplicate it as adults. As kids, it's like, hey, if you believe in yourself, you can do it. And we're just like, yeah, I get that. And then as an adult, you're like, no, it can't really be that simple. The reason we think it can't be that simple is because if it is that simple, well, damn, why have we been fucking up for 10, 15, 20 years? Like now it really is on you. It's like, if that's all there was to it, surely I would have pulled it off. It's like, no, it's because that's all there is to it. And you haven't believed in yourself this whole time that we're missing this result. But yeah, mindset is everything. And higher power, I absolutely believe in universal intelligence and universal laws, law of
Mm-hmm.
attraction, manifesting. For me, I'm not that attached to a specific system with it. Like
Right.
I can listen to people talk about the simulation and the rules of the simulation, and they're like fully bought in. They're like, no, I'm not saying this to be like trendy. Like in the simulation that we're in, there are these rules. And if you think in this way, these things happen, like I can digest that content and get a lot of value from it, use those methods, get results from it. I can listen to Abraham Hicks, some channeler talking about law of attraction in the vortex and get some insights from that. And I use that. Like to me, the fact that so many different systems all say very similar things and all get very similar results just makes it very obvious that it's all using the same thing.
Right.
Like the idea that this religion is speaking to this entity and then they don't exist in this one. And then in this other system, there's 1,000 different entities for like each attribute. There's the wealth god and the
Mm-hmm.
water god. And so like if people all of the world can use these different methods and they all are having prayers answered, to me, it's like, well, one, okay, something's going on.
Yeah.
Like at the very least, something's happening. Like this is not this normal materialistic, like absolutely there's something more going on, right? And then even beyond that, it being a very unbiased system makes the most sense to me logically. And I've just experienced it. Like whether you're focused on good things happening or bad things happening, it's not going to stop you and say, oh, hold on, like you sure you want to focus on the bad? Because that's what I'm going to give you more of. I just wanted to check before you place your
I
attention
know.
there. Like it's very fair and unbiased. It's like, hey, where you place your attention, I am going to give you more of that. But that's also your superpower because you can place your attention on these good things. And guess what? I will give you more of that. So whether that's God answering prayers
Mm-hmm.
or a more unbiased, like non-personal system, I don't know. And I am excited to know for sure one day, either while I'm still here, when I pass on, but I'm also not that interested in the how. I just know it works. I've experienced so many manifestations that would make my jaw like hit the ground because it's so specific and to the T to how I put it out there. And I've experienced more accurate, specific ones, the more in tune I am with all the laws that everyone talks about, like law of detachment and coming at it from this relaxed place, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, Neville Goddard type stuff. And then when it's coming from more of a desperate, I need it, why don't I have it? Sure enough, I push that shit away. Like I've seen both of those happen so many times that I can never unknow or unbelieve or unsee any of those things. Like they've just happened too many times.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, like, while you were talking about that, why do we kind of lose that belief in ourselves as adults and it was simpler as children? Well, I mean, by the time we get to certain points, if your exercise, your nutrition, and your mindset aren't on point coming up, and then with coming across more people that tell you maybe you can't do that,
Mm,
and you combine that little overweight child, the results you got in sports due to that, and then all of a sudden you've lost belief in yourself.
100%.
And did you ever see yourself the way you're looking in camera right now? Did you ever envision that when you were overweight as a child? Did you ever think you would be at this point?
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. So the one thing that definitely had to change was your mind. And so, that's one of those things of we say it all the time is, I think it's kind of cliche and it can be kind of trendy, but it's really not. Kind of like you said, it's straightforward is, don't place too much importance on what other people think because that's what's causing you, other people telling you you can't do it is probably them projecting their own disbelief in their own selves, you know.
100%.
But with that, let's talk a little bit about training, nutrition, mindset trifecta. That seems to be definitely what you focus on. From our discussion, the audience can hear and see that all three really need to be in a line because when one gets out of a line, you were a trainer, yet you were overweight and didn't have good habits. So one gets off, kind of the whole thing gets off. So, kind of what makes the best diet and a good training plan? Because I have an idea of like, what can you do? What can you sustain? And you kind of hear that all the time, but sustain and consistency. And it can be to each person, but some people think whether it's keto, paleo, some people are automatically going to go there as well.
Yeah.
But kind of what's the best diet and training plan from your point of view, and how do you approach clients when you're looking at designing a regiment for somebody?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought up the consistency thing. I just went on a rant about this the other day. So I'm seeing this trend of, hey, it has to be what's sustainable. It has to be what you can do on a regular basis. It's almost like this very soft, like pat on the back,
It's
like,
not the all
look,
in.
it's very much the opposite. And it's like,
Yeah.
look, if you get overwhelmed by this big plan, it's never gonna work. So we have to do what it's almost like saying, hey, just do what you want to do, but do
Yeah.
it consistently. I don't like that take because most people hear that and they run like hell with it. They're like, perfect, just do what I can do every day. I'll just do what I've been doing, which is not shit. But like I'm really good at consistently not working out consistently. So when they
That's
hear that,
sustainable
like,
for me.
right, exactly. So I think it's kind of a dangerous message, and it's almost like this. I don't know. This could have a lot to do with my own lifting journey and getting very minimal results for a massive amount of time investment.
Uh-huh.
It could have a lot to do with that, why I feel so strongly about this. But I see all these like very exotic ways of training and like all these different styles. Like you could do this, you could do this, you could do that. It's all good. I don't think it's all good. Like there is a okay, a better, and a best way to train.
Yeah.
I would just rather do the best, even if it might not be as fun as something like not as good of a result, but I enjoyed a little more. I just want the result. Like
Yeah.
if doing this is what gets me to 20 pull-ups, or I do this and I'm stuck at 10 for the next 3 years, I just rather be able to rep 20 pull-ups. That sounds badass, right? So I'm going to do that one. So as far as the best way to train, progressive overload is absolutely like the main driver. So many people, they don't even log their workouts or track their workouts or have any gauge on if they're getting better or not. It's like hit this weight until you get this many reps. Once you can get that many reps with that weight, go up and weight and then do it again and then do it again. And it's pretty much that for all lifts, all of the time, forever.
Like
And
building a
it
tolerance.
slows down. Yeah. Yeah, it slows down, which is why I think this is when people get like too creative. They're like, oh, maybe I could do this fancy thing and I'll switch this up and I'll come back over here. It's like you just don't like seeing yourself lift that same weight too many weeks in a row. And ADD kicks in, training ADD. It's like maybe there's some other program I could be doing. Like I'm perfectly happy to hit the same weight on dumbbell curls for 6 weeks in a row. If on week 7, now I'm going from the 25s to the 30s. And then if I'm doing the 30s for 8 months and then go to the 35s, and then a year go from the 35s to the 40s, eventually curling 40s for someone, depending on their weight and size, that could be pretty damn
Hmm.
good. And again, like that timeline increases every time you make that next jump. But at the end of the day, that's the whole game when it comes to lifting and resistance training, is just making progress and tracking it, being honest, having very repeatable technique and all these types of things. But even that might be getting ahead of things a little bit. Resistance training, lifting weights is the biggest thing. And a lot of people have an aversion to that. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't really like the gym. It's
I don't
like,
want to
well, do
get too
you know,
big.
right? There's that. There's all kinds of crazy like
Especially with
objections.
females, they're always concerned that resistance training is going to make them too bulky or something. Yet, isn't it one of the number one things they can do for to decrease potential bone density loss in the future as they
Right.
become postmenopausal or whatnot?
100%. And yeah, so that bone mineral density, just being anti-frail, anti-fragile, like
Hmm.
lifting weights brings a lot of benefits that other physical disciplines just don't. Other sports, they're all kind of in the same system of like, oh, it's aerobic, there's some hand-eye coordination, there's some cool stuff there. Only lifting resistance, progressively overloading grants you these very like specific perks of more lean mass, better bone mineral density, all these things, right? So lifting, I feel everyone should do. Like everyone should just lift. It doesn't have to be 6 times a week, push
Right.
pull legs on some bodybuilder bro shit. You could, I have a lot of clients that are like runners or they do other activities and they train full body twice a week. And if
Hmm.
people looked at their workouts, they would be surprised by how minimal it is. They're like, oh, that's it. It'll be like a big leg movement, a big push movement, a pull, a couple arm things, touch up a small muscle group. That's it. Takes like an hour, twice a week. So this
Yeah.
doesn't mean everyone needs to be just crossfitting it up, like lifting every single day, being crazy. But you think about our everyday life, like in 1 week of intense physical training in the gym, you're going to exert more force than someone that doesn't lift potentially in like the next 7 months. Like it's crazy. Like our everyday life is just so easy now. Carrying the groceries in might be the heaviest weight someone lifts in their like day-to-day lives. It's like 20 pounds. It's not enough. Lifting is I just think it's like I mean it's mandatory.
Well, and it's kind of one of these things
I think
of
it's mandatory.
it's like a basic kind of, I always complain, and on some of my other episodes, I talk about how, I got a 10-year-old daughter and they've taught this new math, and I'm 47. And I'm like, and then she's like, well, I didn't learn it that way, Daddy. I learned it this new way. And I'm like, well, I have a master's degree. I don't even know what the hell was wrong with old math. And why am I repeating the fourth grade trying to learn new math? And so that kind of, I made that connection when you were talking about, yeah, there's this new training program. Maybe you hit that plateau and then it stifles your brain and you're like, you can't wrap your head around it. But I'm this very big proponent of, let's take the big picture. Like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Reduce it down to basics. First things first. And the basics are always there. The basics will never fail.
That's it. The
Just like
basics.
old math. What was wrong with old math? It got me through a master's degree and it got people so far along. Probably some of the best and prolific minds we have in the world took the same math I did. They just went to higher levels. But yeah, I found that that was kind of an interesting point. So what are we going to determine is the best diet to kind of go along? We've determined that resistance training and everybody should lift is just kind of that universal standard, kind of a basic that's going to
Yeah.
give you those long-term results that you're looking for to be healthy as an older adult. Not about the physique, but about living long and being healthy. What kind of diets are you prescribing to some of your clients as the
Yeah,
best diet?
yeah. Well, it is the best, and it's tracking macros
Hmm.
and having the exact amount of carbs, fats, and proteins for your goal. So if you're trying to lose weight, maintain weight, or gain weight, all three of those scenarios come with a very specific number, or at least a very specific range of carbs, fats, and proteins. So if you can have as close to that number as possible for your goal, is it possible to get a better result having a different number than that? No, it's not possible. If for your weight, 200 grams of protein is literally perfect, like it's the closest to perfect you can get, and someone's like, I'm on this plan that has me having 150 and I'm getting a better result. It's not possible. I'm not saying 200 is like the holy grail. Again, it's different for everyone based on their weight, their age, their sex, how they train,
Their
all
goal.
this and that, their goal 100%. But once we have that and we have this number or this range of numbers that it's like, okay, you fall into this, there's no magical system that somehow defies that and is also better at the same time. So I'm a big fan of macros. A lot of people have some hangups with that. They feel like the tracking is too much. It
I'm a
has
fan
like
of it
this
as well.
negative connotation attached to it. Like it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like not freeing, right? I've even seen people make these posts lately, like trashing on macros. They're like food
Yeah.
freedom. And it'll be like an MMA fighter that literally burns like 6,000 calories a day. I'm like, that's totally different. Like if
Yeah.
someone is, like an ultra runner or a fighter or some like extreme endurance athlete, yeah, they have a wide window of freedom. Like they can kind of eat like crazy and they'll be okay because they're burning so many calories. For most people, if you just lift, walk a good bit, and then have a normal kind of job, like it's going to be so easy for you to go over that amount. So I like tracking. I like macros. Beyond that, even the whole like vegan carnivore thing, it's this weird like personality thing. I feel like it's this weird tribal
Yeah.
cultural thing. Like I'm in this group. I'm like, let's just do what's the best.
Yeah.
I was talking to a client the other day. He's finally coming around. He's like, I might have to start eating some chicken. He's been a pescatarian for years, and he's like, end of the day, I kind of know it's probably not the best. I'm like, well, let's just do it today. Let's start today. Let's start eating chicken. Like the foods you eat, the calories you have, the macros you have. Get as close as you can to the best numbers for all those, and you're going to get the best result. That's it.
Once I learned about tracking macros, I found that they helped me quite a bit because, like you said, I mean, I was a trainer, but my brother-in-law owns his own gym and he's
Oh,
done
nice.
bodybuilding competitions and whatnot. And he has the one of the Staiku scanners, I think, and you're able to get your body fat. You can generate how many calories you need and how long you want to lose that weight. And it's just so beneficial. But, kind of like you said, I think people, once they know what they need, depending on that goal, then tracking that is absolutely how you have to get there because you're not going to put on the muscle without the right amount of protein. And even like UFC fighters, yes, they have a more extreme range during certain points, but hey, when it comes fight time and they got to cut weight or make weight, those macros change in order for them to
Oh yeah,
drop that weight. And
100%.
but I think that's a great point of, you can't look at other people and go, well, yeah, they have a bigger range, but also their needs are different depending on what your goal is. The people who do go to the gym and know about whether there's bulking and cutting, if you're a bicycle rider or ultra marathoner, you're going to need more carbs
Right.
throughout that process. And so I think kind of understanding that on your fitness journey and when you contact a coach and get some of that advice, knowing what you're actually going for and taking the time to get that, whether it's body scan, body measurements, whatever your trainer, your coach feels like is best, is you're not going to get where you're going if you don't know where you are and actually track
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
MyFitnessPal, great. And you can use macros with the free version. So if anybody's listening and you have a hang up about it, it's super easy.
It's very user friendly. I've been using it for over a decade. Even when I was a fat bastard, I was using it. I was just
Me
tracking
too.
like insane calories. I'm like, all right, 4,000 calories. Did it again.
Did you ever
It's
put
like,
your
wait a minute.
alcohol in there? I would actually put like shots of whiskey and stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
definitely tell when you start looking. And I think, a lot of people, whenever I first started working in gyms as a front desk person and I was overweight and I lost my first 30 pounds, it was like, I don't know if we had My Fitness Pal, but I don't think we did. But it was definitely, it seems overwhelming, but once you learn and once you start seeing and once you learn to read labels and you
Yeah.
kind of measure something, and I think it's a great idea and you'll get better at it, but don't get overwhelmed. But I think the importance of measuring is you need to see what does a quarter cup of trail mix or granola look like and associate it with to go, oh, wow, that's that much fat and that many calories for a quarter
Yeah.
cup. Because a lot of people don't realize trail mixes, nuts, certain things, the serving size is not a ton, and being able to visualize that and go, oh, well, no wonder if you sit down and eat half a bag of trail mix because it's got M&Ms in it, you're gonna get overweight. You're gonna bulk
Yeah.
up.
Just real quick, after you're done listening to this amazing episode on this pretty freaking sweet podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and then head on over to the Podcast Connection Network and check out all the other amazing podcasts that we got over there. This is a plug. I got one too. It's called The Nonchalant Perfectionist. Check us all out. The link, you know where the link's going to be in the episode's description.
And that can be very disheartening for people. Like when they first go to track and they realize some of their favorite things are so dense, to have such a small amount, they're like, I don't even know if I want to learn any more than I've already seen too much. They're like this, but at the end of the day, it's reality. Like whether you weighed it out or not, whether you measured it out or not, that small handful was 300 calories. I would rather know and have that knowledge with me for the rest of my life than be in like this ignorance is bliss, because it's not bliss.
Yeah.
It's not bliss at all. And that's another reason I like macros is I feel it does long term build a healthier relationship with food and just a better outlook. Like a lot of these elimination diets, like keto or the ultimate elimination diet, like fasting. I used to do a lot of that back in the day. I do 48-hour fasts and 60-hour fasts, like multiple times a week. And then I would
Wow.
feast and then go back to a fast. And in my mind, I was like, this is like the most disciplined version. So I'm building all kinds of discipline by going 3 days just drinking salt water. But I actually think those are, in a way, like taking the easier way out because it's so simple. It's like, oh, I just won't have this thing. Carnivore, I'll just eat meat. Boom. Now it made it so simple. It's like a little easier for the mind to digest, right? But is that setting someone up for success for like their life? I'm not so sure because let's say they do carnivore for a few months and then they go back to regular eating. They might have the same habits they had when they last left off with regular eating. I
Yeah.
definitely had that with the fasting. Once I got rid of those huge fasting windows, I was just kind of going back to doing the same thing. So I ballooned right back up again. The macros, like you're saying, even when you don't measure it, you kind of know. Like
Yes.
forever, you can look at an amount of rice and know if it's not enough, or too much. You can look at a serving of meat and be like, yes, about 50 grams of protein. You can look at a thing as like chips or whatever and be like, man, that would be a waste. It would
Yeah.
be good, but it's just funny, even as I'm saying this, like so many people that talk about calories, macros, the fats, the snacks, like people just get so turned off to it. They roll their eyes. They're like, oh, lame. Again, it's reality. Maybe it's lame, maybe it's not. Maybe this guy that likes looking a certain way and says, I'm good on the donuts. And the overweight person's like, well, I'm living my best life. I'm going to enjoy it. Like, it's reality. This person knows that a few bites of this thing just cost them what could have been some rice and some meat and some fuel that's going to have them feeling good the next day. And so they're just making the better decision for them. Like that's it. It kind of goes back to that all in thing. Like it's really a shame to me when someone can say, hey, this map right here gets you to the result you want better than anything else. And they make it negative. People will find a way to make it negative. They're like, no, that's so lame. Worried about the numbers, man. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
damn, I guess if you want a subpar result, yeah, don't worry about it.
it's like being able to see too, I think once you're able, like you can't unsee it, kind of like you said. And when you track and you're able to go, man, like if I want to eat 2000 calories of clean food, how much food it is. But then you can go to McDonald's and eat 2000 calories real fucking quick.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And so it's like, especially if you're a person who's in a, let's say 15 to 1800 calorie range, maybe you're a smaller female client or something, you're like, oh, I'm going to go have Wendy's. Even if you have like the junior stuff, because I had a client do this when I was a trainer. She's like, wow, I didn't know it was that many calories. I'm like, yeah, you're getting half, maybe more of your calories for one meh,
Yeah.
and you could have so much more. And, now where are you going to put the other 4 or 5 meals you're supposed to have or snacks or however you arrange it? But
Right.
I
It's just a
think that's,
trade-off.
yeah, I think it's very important to at least know. And once you know and you can see, then it's like even if you miss a day in my fitness pal, I know if I don't enter it in on a day, I know a quarter pounder with cheese plain is 500 calories. I know I should be eating 3 to 500 calories, maybe a meal, let's say, for my body weight, my caloric needs, but that's all I can eat. I can't have anything else with it. And it's just one thing. And so do I choose to? No, I don't. I would rather have, if I was going to have 500 calories, I can have multiple different things as opposed to just one burger that's not even super satisfying.
Yeah.
I think too, because I haven't done it in a while, but being an Uber driver, knowing if I had to eat while I was on the road, I mean, I could take protein shakes and stuff, but also learning to go, hey, if I do have to stop or somewhere, I'm going to eat something, just choose a whole food. Maybe I would go get some brisket from a barbecue joint or something, because I know that's real meat into a cooker, out of the cooker, salt and pepper, and it's not processed. I know a third of a pound, a quarter of a pound. I know what 3 to 4 to 6 ounces of brisket is and will provide me nutritionally. And so definitely an important part to be
Yeah.
highlighted is don't get overwhelmed, don't be scared, go all in, and you'll see that it'll make the difference.
Yeah. Specifically for the men, 'cause it's called men of the
Mhm.
house, right?
Yes,
I want
sir.
to go. I want to go into this. I used to think tracking calories was lame. I didn't think it was manly. Like a man, a solid man, cutting his dinner in half. Can I have
Yeah.
my little to-go box? I'd be like, pussy. Come on, bro. Put it down and finish the beer, dude. Like that was me. I would finish my entire entree. My wife, she'd look at me, can you finish mine? Slide it
Yeah.
over. You're damn right I can finish that. I'm chugging my beer. I'm like, this is some man shit. Well, guess what that got me? Titties. It got me titties. So, in my effort to be a man, I quite literally became less of one. And I don't know if it's like in movies or something, if we just see like the guy just throwing down on food, or if we all grew up just seeing the dads and like the adult role models
Yeah.
throwing down on food, and we just decided like, oh, that's just what you do. Like that's what the man does. But I thought that for years, and I associated like a salad with salmon as just the softest, most fucking pussy thing ever, right?
Yeah.
Again, when what the macro shows you is reality. The reality I got by being a man and clean plate club and the beer and
Yep.
the liquor and whatever else turned me into a fat bastard. It's not very manly. I feel way more manly now, measuring my stuff, weighing it out, right? It's like
Hmm.
these are just different tools and mechanisms to get you either this result or that result. If we can boil it down to those simple terms and not get so weird about it, it's like it's way more obvious what's needed and what we should do. So wanted to share that because I think that's what a lot of men struggle with. I know a lot of guys, they haven't said it in the way I just said it, but
Yeah.
I know that's the reason they overeat. They're like, that's just what a man does. Like pass the bread, pass the sides, going all in on this entree. Let's get two of them. Like just
Yeah.
feast mode,
I think
like
it's
King's Feast.
about redefining, and I think part of the podcast and where we are in the world at this current time, I think it's a time of redefining what to be a man means. And I've had
Mm,
some interviews with like some guys from men's groups and whatnot, and it's been a very interesting discussion in that women, you had Rosie the Riveter, of course, that came out during the World Wars, but then they kind of went back to a traditional housewife thing, and then they wanted rights and equality and to be CEOs and all that, and they fought for it and they got it and super happy about that. But like one of the guys said, he goes, as men, we're kind of behind because we've been doing the same thing or what we thought was expected of us or what we thought a man was, while the women have been kind of moving forward because women have moved so far forward and now they're CEOs and this and that, the other, and the breadwinners in their relationships. The expectations of what a man should be, what they do, and all that kind of changes too, or what they expect and what's required of a man. And I think it's becoming more, but not more in that traditional sense of you just need to go to work, be gone all day, and come home to your family for a few hours. But I think more in terms of men being more open with their spouse, being more emotionally available, whether it's admitting to when you don't feel great or asking for help, but those things that we've traditionally considered to be less manly
Hmm.
is now kind of what the women want and expect. And we're just now coming along through it and through men's groups and podcasts and coaches such as yourself. And it's slowly starting to change. And that's kind of the point is I'm interested in all people. Yes, I want to make all people better, but definitely especially men because one, I'm a man, I relate to them and it's men of the house. And I was sitting there next to other men at the Waffle House enjoying my solo breakfast while the wife and kids were asleep. And I'm like, hey, we're all here. We all have something in common. And that was kind of the point to exploring that. But yeah, that was definitely a good point. And I think it's the redefining of what a man should be. Because like you said, trying to be so manly got you further away from being a man.
100%.
And that's very eye-opening. Got you titties.
I
Um,
think I think a lot of it's the movies, man. Like in Thor, he's
yeah.
putting away the beer and it's magically refilled. He's like, "This is so good." Drinking the beer, it's like, ain't no one putting away pints and looking like Chris Hemsworth. I'm sorry, not
No,
going to happen.
no.
Or even if someone is, it's probably not going to be your story. I actually used to use that as like rationalization. I would be out of the club and see like a dude with a sickening like upper back holding a drink, and I'd be like, okay, it is possible. Wasn't my reality. Wasn't
Yeah.
what I was experiencing. So even if that guy can pull it off, what does that have to do with me? Absolutely nothing. But yeah, it's like in all these movies and shows, it's the dude after a long day at work holding the drink, smoking the cigarette. I think the cigarettes are kind of out. Seems like
Yeah.
everyone's kind of agreeing like that's just dumb.
I
But the
think alcohol's
alcohol,
getting there. The alcohol's getting there, I think, in
I think so
society,
too.
but not in film and advertising, because I interviewed a guy who actually is obsessed with alcohol advertising within streaming services.
Mm,
And he actually studies it. And he was talking about like almost like 10 minutes in because it's like product placement. He said almost without fail, like Bridgerton, Griselda, a few Netflix specials. And he's like, yeah, they break out the alcohol and it becomes this norm. But I really think as a society that we're kind of breaking up with alcohol. And, I think people are moving towards more natural things, whether it be cannabis or psychedelics. And I have my own views and thoughts on that. I definitely think they're a little better in alcohol, but it depends too on what your struggles are, how you deal with it. But kind of like you said too,
yeah.
what your goal is. Like if you want the best, then putting these things in your body, even with edibles. I like an edible to sleep sometimes, but I know if I were to eat one during the day or something, then I'm gonna overeat. I'm gonna get the munchies. So I just don't really do it often. But even my views are evolving on that of kind of what you would say an all in of I just don't want anything except for the cleanest, the only things that should be going in my body.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about stuff like that? I mean, did you ever use edibles or cannabis back in the day? And kind of what are your thoughts on it? Because I know and the reason I want to talk about it is because they're kind of emerging as this swap for alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of want to explore that a little because I don't know that, swapping one addiction for another is the best thing, even though it may be less harmful or there may be some cannabis benefits or whatever. I'm not anti. And I think you should do what you want to do and what you can handle, but I'm definitely interested in this question.
Yeah. No, if anything, I took things way more extreme with that than the alcohol. Even in my heyday with alcohol, because I've been in the gym for the last 10 years, I can never let it get like too crazy.
Right.
Like bad for me would be like 5 to 7 drinks and my workout's not that great the next day and I'm like upset about it.
Hmm.
Someone else's bad with alcohol might be like freaking bender and waking up in a ditch. Where am I? Like me being so invested in my physical stuff was always kind of a deterrent for how
Right.
crazy the alcohol can get, you know what I mean? But the cannabis, dude, I used to just get obliterated. Like I really got into edibles. I was taking them every day, multiple times a day for a while there. Some different cats I worked with, they would make them, they're just always available. I was having damn near, not even near, I was having straight up psychedelic experiences with them. I'm
Wow.
talking I'm talking entities. I'm having out of body experiences. And then I got like hooked on that. Like it was literally like experiencing magic. It's like freaking experiencing Narnia. Like, wow, there is more to reality than I thought. Like, I have to go back. I have to go
Yeah.
back. I want to go on the other side of that gate, right? So yeah, there was a wild era with that, and ultimately the reason I had to walk away from that was early on in my wife and I's relationship. She's like, dude, I might as well be alone. Like you're talking to yourself. Like I'm telling her stuff. It's not really like a two-way dialogue or conversation. I'm telling her about past lives, and I'm like, our cat was there. Our cat bugged. And she's like, okay, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And then we'd be driving like we're going to meet someone, and I'm just looking out the window, seeing shit like I was not here. And that became an issue. And one time she asked me, "Can you please not get crazy tonight? Like I want you to drive. I want us to do this thing." And I was like, "Of course." She turns around. I literally was like Men in Black, like mind wipe. Totally forgot what conversation we just had. Go in the other room, get baked. She comes around. What are you doing? I was like, "What?" She's like, "You just said you weren't." I was like, damn, I did go back for more. Like it was out of control. So I had to walk away from that. And at the end of the day, I do feel it's not as harmful as alcohol.
Right.
Like if we're looking at it on paper, ones and zeros, it's definitely not as harmful. But career wise, growth and development wise, it definitely held me back. Even my dad used to say, "It's giving you that fuck it factor, son." And I think he was right. I didn't want to admit it at the time. And kind of like the alcohol thing, like seeing the jack guy at the club. No, you can do both. I would think of like Joe Rogan
Yeah, you're not
or
Joe
or
Rogan.
or or a musician. I'm like,
Yeah.
plenty of successful people partake, which is true. But guess what? Two things can be true. Am I being massively successful while partaking? No, I'm walking around Bond Park till like 4 a.m., like looking at the sky, talking to freaking little green Indies and shit. So it's like, is this driving me to this epic place of success? No, it's definitely a backstep, or at worst, I'm just like treading water, right? So for me, I think I would be a lot further along in certain areas if I didn't spend so many years involved with it. But I mean, maybe I wouldn't like have the same personality either. I'm pretty convinced it had a permanent effect
Right.
because of how much I used to consume. But I personally just like no vices.
Yeah.
Like I'm more of a no vices than a sobriety guy because like sobriety and alcohol, like sometimes that becomes
It's
people's
negative.
whole identity, and it's
Yeah.
negative, and it's so focused on that that I'm like that. Like if I think about alcohol too much, I want to drink. I wanted to
Right.
drink yesterday.
You
I
think
wanted to
about
drink
what you
bad.
get.
Yeah. I
Or
was. I mean,
what, yeah, you pursue what you think.
yeah. What's on your mind? 100%. It's that law of attraction. Like if it's
Mm-hmm.
what you place your attention on, you're going to bring more of that to you. So I don't like honing too much in on just alcohol. I like the umbrella of no vices
I
because
like
then that
that.
can be sugar, that can be a negative internal dialogue, that can be gossip, that can potentially be video games, depending on how many hours are being spent with it. And then it's less of an identity thing, it's less of this tribal thing, and it just goes back to that, what's going to give me the best result? If I want to go here, is this thing in the way or is it pushing me towards it? It's pushing me towards it, I'm going to keep doing it. It's in the way, well, I'm going to stop doing it. Easier said than done, but if we can operate in that manner most of the time, you're going to be better off. So I like no vices.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I don't think I've ever heard that. And being so old, I'm kind of like, wow. But I love that thought process because it kind of goes back to thought and
Hmm.
personal. Let's go with another, cringy word outside of mindset, which is self-improvement, but to or personal development to develop one's person.
That's
It's
my favorite. That's my
I
favorite.
know you have to. I think sometimes, kind of like you said, knowing both sides of the equation gives you that clarity. And so knowing about yourself is how you start. Like you said, it's less harmful, but for you, you're a no vices guy. Outside of the occasional edible, I'm kind of headed that way. And I think it's because I've learned to look inside. I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of self-reflection and to understand that this is not necessarily propelling me to the next level I want to be at, or it's not doing anything, or it's not working, or, if it's not going to put me to sleep like it's supposed to, then why am I taking it? If
Hmm.
there's no benefit to it, or if it's not working for its intended purpose, then now it's a detriment.
Yeah.
Kind of like nutrition. And so you have to know yourself and you have to know what's good for you and what's bad for you. You know, my wife doesn't have a drinking problem. She drinks one drink and she gets tired. I'm the extreme person. And it's funny that I sit here and go, why is it hard for me to go all in on some things? But I can guarantee you when it came to like drugs and alcohol and some other things in my life, I was definitely all in.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when you start looking at that, and I think it poses a question to the audience, and especially if you're listening to this and you want to get something different from yourself, is to understand that it's like this concept of we feel out of control, yet we turn to a bottle or something and get more out of
Mm,
control, somehow thinking that's gonna give us more control. But it's starting to be kind of that black and white thing of, hey, this is where I want to be, and I'm not there. And either this thing is adding or it's a detriment.
mm.
Either
That's
you
it.
keep
That's
doing
it.
something, stop doing something, or look for something else you should be doing that's going to propel you, and
Yeah.
making those evaluations and whatnot. So before we close it out, love that episode that I saw on YouTube, and kind of why I want to end with this was I love this. There was a part of the conversation that's like, hey, looking good, feeling good, thinking good, then life is good. It's irrefutable. It's not up for debate. Talk to me a little bit about that in your own words. And you can tie in that part, I say why help people want to help people of going, hey, I'm over here. Why wouldn't I want you to be over here with me? Because this is the
Yeah.
best, you know,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
irrefutable.
It's irrefutable. Looking better will always be better than looking worse. You'll never look better and be like, actually, I looked better before I looked, the better I do now. Like it's built into the verbiage. It's not possible. So looking better will always be better than looking worse. Feeling better will always be better than feeling worse. And thinking better will always be better than thinking worse. And it's all three though, because it's not just about the looks. Like I go back to the aesthetics part of it a
Hmm.
lot because I see that like almost downplayed these days. And I think that's crazy because we all have to look at ourselves in the mirror,
Right.
especially in today's day and age. Like we're doing this podcast, everything's on video. Like we just see ourselves all the time now. So
Hmm.
it's in our best interest to look our best. So that's why I really do double down on the aesthetics thing. But yeah, it's all of it. Like what is our life really made up of at the end of the day? You wake up, you do your daily to-dos, you think the thoughts you have the interactions you eat the things you eat. Like if in all those areas you're excelling, you're gonna have a better life. It's irrefutable. There's no way around it. There's no one that was really out of shape. They got in great shape and they're like, if only I could go back. No one's ever said it.
I want to be
It,
fat
it's
again.
yes, it's never been done. It's never been done. I mean, even the thinking thing, I used to have a crazy inner dialogue, depressive and very self-deprecating and all that. And people will deal with that for decades. People will deal with an inner dialogue and a loop of self-talk that does not make them feel good for decades, if not their entire life. And it's unnecessary. It doesn't have to be that way. Like it takes quite a bit of work. I did affirmations for like almost a year straight without seeing that many tangible changes. A lot of people would have stopped 2 months in, 5 months in, 7 months
Right.
in. I'm like, I know eventually this is going to fully rewire my subconscious mind. It's
Consistency.
just a matter of time, consistency. So I did affirmations every single morning for over a year, first thing in the morning. And I can confidently say that I have rewired my own inner dialogue. That was very beneficial. That's the biggest thing. I'm so glad you said black and white earlier. That's my whole thing is thinking in black and white terms. Is it helping or is it hurting? Is it to your benefit? Is it to your detriment? Because these days, everyone's like, oh, but gray area, nuance, yada, yada, yada. Some things,
Cake and
sure,
eat
there's
it too.
nuance. Right, right, right. For the most part, it's just one or the other. It's just black and white. And that doesn't mean you become like a perfect cyborg and can never make a bad decision again.
Right.
I would rather strive for 100% and naturally fall in that 80-20 range than
Right.
plan on the 80-20 range and end up on like some 50-50 bullshit. So this isn't saying
Well
like
said.
only perfect thoughts, only perfect workouts, only perfect diet. Like this morning, my wife and I, we had Starbucks and like some of their loaves and like
Hmm.
glazed donuts and shit for breakfast. And I just knew, okay, well, since I had that, I'm not having this other thing later, yada, yada, yada. It's not about being some impossible, perfect thing, right? But it is about knowing if this is better and I love myself, I should want that.
Right.
if I'm gonna feel better over there than where I am here, and I love myself, I should take a step forward every day until I get there. That's it.
There was something else that I don't know if it was you or the host, but it was even if I were stranded on an island alone, I'd still rather be
Oh yeah,
jacked.
yeah, yeah. I
I
said that.
love that.
Yeah.
And I thought about it,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's kind of one of these things of they kind of go together in that I think it's important that we go back to aesthetics a little bit because that's kind of where it all starts. And our eyes are the first things we see the world with. And, but it's true that if you look better, you're going to feel better. When you feel better, you have more confidence. You perform better. You believe in yourself a little more. And even if you're stranded on an island alone by yourself, that belief in self that, hey, I'm going to survive, I'm going to thrive, I can climb trees, I can cut wood, I can make fire, kind of like Survivor. You know that you're going to have that belief to pass more tests the more capable you are. And there's
100%.
just no two ways around it. And that's why we look at fit people and expect a certain standard or, hold them kind of on a pedestal or look up to them or aspire to be like them. There's a reason, good or bad. And whether we're intaking reasons that are, people who are on PEDs or something, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But all that aside, you looking better is going to make you feel better. Aesthetics is a point. But like for me, I'll be 48 in 2 weeks. Yes, I still have 15 or 20 pounds to go. I still want to do some things with my aesthetics, but at my age, I also look at the other parts of, hey, some aesthetics, definitely, but it's also feeling better and it's wanting to be around for my 10-year-old daughter and being able to play with her and take her to the pool all summer and not feel like a dirt bag when I take my shirt off or to know that, hey, you haven't been doing what you want to do. And why is that? Kind of like you said, last summer I had to take my shirt off and be comfortable with 199 pounds. This summer it'll be different. But it didn't happen by accident. It happened with intention and a
Yeah.
decision. And it started in my mind. And it started my last birthday when I was like, I'm gonna give up drinking because I had 2 margaritas on my birthday. They didn't do anything. And within an hour and a half, not only did I not really have a buzz, I was already getting the depression from the alcohol use. And I said, no more, and then I started walking and then I started lifting. And I'm not a fanatic, but hey, like 2 to 3 times a week, weights, full body workout, sub in the rest with cardio because depending on my schedule, I just say, just get it in, whether it's a walk at the park, whether it's a walk here, some push ups, some planks, just do something. And once you kind of get on that, then I start to notice that when I do miss the gym, or I've been sick this week and I only made it twice, and it impacts how I feel and I get crabby and it's become this not just a therapy, but yeah, like a medicine. I mean, I've dropped
Yeah.
47 pounds and gone from 9 prescriptions to two. Now that's kind of the medicine. That's the antidepressant. So I would definitely encourage people, it doesn't matter where you need to start, but just make up your mind. And I love the all in thing. I never really thought about it. I don't know why that question stuck out to me. It makes me think how I've been approaching some things in my life. Yes, with close to 50 episodes of the podcast, I think I'm all in, but sometimes I still have the little fragments of doubt, even though I know I'm all.
Yeah.
But it's a whole other conversation with the psyche. But you've given me, I think, in the audience some great things to think about, especially as it relates to mine. But where can people find you? I know you mentioned in the beginning, but let's mention it again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on all the platforms, but I'm
Hmm.
definitely the most active on Instagram, Oak City Strong. I document my daily process every day. You can see all my client wins, all the cool stuff that they're doing. And I pretty much talk like we just talked every day
Awesome.
on there.
And
On
what's
my drive to the gym, on my drive home from the gym, I'm always ranting and going on about topics such as these on a daily basis. So
and what's for the future? Do you have any other plans outside of coaching or anything you're kind of integrating in, maybe in
yeah,
addition to?
just going all in on the coaching. I've been coaching online and in person for 5 years. Just recently, I started working for myself fully. So all my
Hmm.
in-person coaching is all through my own name. So that's really exciting. It's kind of a recent development. And my wife's full-time stay-at-home mom. Our son is 7 months old, so
Cool.
really
Congrats.
really excited for the future. A lot of things that I knew would happen eventually happened even sooner than I thought, and things are just getting better and better. And I genuinely love what I do. I don't even think about it like work. I would do this anyway. I love seeing my people progress and get better, and tell me how you talk about like the beach and being shirtless. I got a guy. I know he can't wait. I know he can't wait to roll up and take his shirt off and be like, this is nice. This is nice. Some men don't have that for like years and years, if not their entire life, of going to the beach with some shame. And getting rid of that is so empowering. It'll change someone's life. It'll change
Yeah.
someone's life if you can just be free. And it's not even about like walking up and down the sands like, oh, look at me, I look so good.
It's an
It's more
internal.
of it's internal. It's what you get rid of, because no one enjoys taking off the shirt and like looking over their shoulder to seeing who's watching. Now you're just taking off your shirt and you're just relaxed. You're just at peace. So being able to give that gift to people means the world to me. But yeah, Oak City Strong on Instagram. Check me out.
You said that means the world to you, and kind of another question, and this will probably be the final one, is I like when people make this decision, kind of like you have, to go all in, because I want the audience or whoever needs to be inspired today to hear this. Is you've made that decision. Here you are 10 years later. You mentioned that now everything is under your name, which is quite an accomplishment. And I'm sure it took some deliberate visualization and whatnot to make that happen. But what is one thing that has happened in this process, or something that sticks out that is just so awesome? And it's because you made that decision and you're like, I never saw this coming. I can't believe this happened. And it never would have happened had I not changed my mind and went all in.
Yeah, definitely been visualizing. I'm glad you said that word. And if anything, what's been a surprise is just how fast things have moved. I visualize my income and what it's going to be and what it'll be every month, and then what the next benchmark will be after that.
Mm-hmm.
And without getting too specific, something that I thought would take place within like 5 to 8 months happened in the first 30 days.
Oh,
And
wow.
the next tier above that, that's also written down in many of my books. It's in many audio recordings that I listen to on a regular basis in the morning
Mm-hmm.
as I do my affirmations. Even that next tier is also already being approached. And I thought that would be way, way further down the road. And it's funny, I even was listening to someone talk about affirmations and having goals. And he was saying, go ahead and go up a couple on the scale of what you think it should be. Because he's like, I started out with this one and I realized I was lowballing myself because it happened so fast. I'm like, I might as well have started out, seeing, believing, and knowing that this number was going to happen. And it's
But
literally
all in.
exactly how it's played out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that practice of visualization, out of all the other things I'm into, affirmations, law of attraction, all that, like even without knowing those titles or what they mean, I highly encourage everyone to visualize. I think it's very powerful, the power of your own imagination, seeing every detail of your life in your most ideal way, right? Infusing that vision with positive emotion, not desperate, not I have to have it, not it needs to be this way, more so playful, almost childlike. As a kid, I used to daydream for hours and hours and hours and
Me
hours. I had
too.
such a big imagination. And I actually thought it was a negative at the time because it kind of messed up with my academic side of things because I was like such a dreamer, right?
Yeah.
And now I realize it's like one of the greatest gifts ever. But if you can go in your mind's eye and just see an epic reality, see an epic physique, see yourself making good decisions, see yourself having positive interactions with your loved ones, just every fucking detail of your life. If you can take the time every day or most days, close your eyes and see that, I promise you, you will blow your fucking mind. You will blow your mind, and it'll happen faster than you thought it was going to happen, and it'll be so vivid and so specific to what you saw. We could do a whole episode on that.
Yeah.
Like that,
And
it's
that
a
reminds me,
topic I'm
you
very
have to
excited about.
be you have to be very specific with what you want in
Yeah.
that manner. And I think that, I'm very much into the same stuff. And, oftentimes you're not specific enough and you're not dreaming, visualizing big enough.
Yes.
Um, and I'm guilty of that. And it's kind of one of these things of I used to do that on my self reviews. When I worked in healthcare, you had to do a self one and then your director gives you one. And I would go where I thought I was. If it was a scale of 1 to 5, I thought I was a 4, but I would rate myself a 3,
Mm,
not giving myself the credit because I was worried that my director, if I put 4, they were going to say, no, you're actually a 3. So then I go ahead and put 3, and they're like, no, you're actually a 4 or a 5. So I was confident that I was where I should be. And it's like, why didn't I give myself the credit? And, you know, when you do that, you're just stifling your own growth. You're implanting that negative. You're not giving yourself a credit. You're disbelieving in yourself.
mm.
And even though it's reaffirmed that I was where I thought I was, the problem is if it didn't kick into why did I do it every year? If I had really learned, I would have the second year been like, no, I'm fine. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself that 4. But every year I doubted myself and you know, it's just terrible. So with visualization, make sure you're specific and go big. Start big.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's definitely proven in sports. And if you have any doubts or questions about that, look up visualization in athletes. And there's so many studies out there that show that, people who visualize or people who shoot baskets, that the results can be very close while one did the actual motion and one did the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like watching an action movie and your heart rate gets up,
Yeah.
or just thinking about a confrontation that you wanted to pop off on your coworker and you look down and your hands are sweating. You're like, I want to kill this motherfucker. It's like, it shows the undeniable connection between the mind and the body. And people are like, oh yeah, but wasn't that like normal or whatever? This other thing you're talking about is some woo-woo shit. It's like, if you train your biology, every cell in your body to expect, to assume, to plan on a certain thing happening, whether it be a very, again, I'm not attached to a certain system. It could just be very materialistic science taking place. And now you've trained your reticular activation system to like see things that you wouldn't have normally seen. So now you have these conversations. Now you land these opportunities. It could be that, or it could be God answering a prayer, or this could be the simulation and you're like messing with the codes of it. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. I'm just interested in the result. And I've gotten the result from these practices, like
Hmm.
time after time after time after time. It works. And this is something I ran a lot about on my page. I'm like, a lot of these more out there concepts, people will say that can't be true for their whole life. It's like, you don't want to try it once. You don't want to do a 30-day experiment where you just write down some words in your journal and see certain things with your imagination. Like, we're not asking you to travel up a mountain and go see some like ancient monk and fast for 30 days. Like, what's required to make most of these things happen is so minimal. It's crazy. And even that, it's just like too much. They're like, yeah, I'm kind of busy though. It's like, this dude over here is saying you could create anything. You could create your dream life and you're too busy living not your dream life.
Oh,
Like, it makes sense.
that's
Like,
powerful.
come on. What's the holdup? Just try it.
Ah. But do you have any questions for me before we hop off?
Yeah, I just really enjoy this, Robert. I feel like we're kindred spirits in that extreme thing. It sounds like we've had very similar
Yeah.
very similar backgrounds, and with that being said, like anyone listening that has that extreme personality, like an addictive type personality, it really is a superpower. Because once
All
you get
in.
rid of the negative shit, like I'm sure you've seen, that dog is still in you that
Yes.
has that has that voracious appetite, right? So it's like, well, now what are we going to feed him? Because this wild, untamed beast that can put down the bottle, put down the edibles, now that those
Hmm.
things are gone, I still have that in me. You still have that in you. And now we just have to apply that towards positive things. And that's when you just change your whole reality. So I would just encourage anyone that has a similar
appetite for
psychological
vices.
structures. Yeah. Appetite for vices. Like once you take them away, now we're really onto something. So don't look at it as a negative or be like, oh, this is my curse. It's actually your greatest gift. And I'm sure you would agree.
Man, very enlightening conversation today. I've learned a few things, or whether you say learn or connected, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was great, and it's given me a lot to think about, and I know the audience is going to enjoy this, but yeah, it's been awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time, and till next time, and I'll send you an email and let you know when everything's gonna release, or it'll be on Podmatch. All right.
Awesome. Sounds good. Appreciate
All
you,
right, man.
brother.
You have a great day.
All right. Peace.
Well, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Remember, go out and be the person that you want to meet.
Hey, go.
Asteroid of fear.